assumed,
That's okay.
I just assumed you didn't want to record it. So, all right. So we're recording.
Recording. I probably told you all that.
So I want to thank you all for coming yesterday and for all the speakers yesterday and all the input that we got. I think it was a very productive and fun meeting for, for an online kind of meeting. So we've got definitely a few things as a committee that we can think about in our closed session, which I really appreciate. Also, I just want to remind you that today Bruce will be taking us into the hangar to show us the Alvin overhaul, and we're going to do that right at the end. So, but I think given our agenda, it's not an ambitious agenda, and hopefully we can stay on track in timing, but even make some time up, because there've been a few other requests for other kinds of presentations. And what else did I want to? Yesterday we didn't have one of our committee members, Andrew Thurber. Andrew, do you want to just introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, everyone. I couldn't make it today.
Anyway, his sound is very, very bad.
Yeah, so, we're struggling to hear your mic.
This is Andrew Thurber, and he's from Oregon State University. He's a microbiologist, works in sediments in the deep sea, different environments. Was that good enough? Okay, and he's a friend. You're the friend of Jason, so yeah. Okay, and with that, let's get started with, so today we're kind of going to talk a little bit about some of the things that DeSSC has been involved with, and some of what we're trying to think about for the next year. It's been kind of slow with COVID. We've kind of scaled down a lot of our activities because a lot of what we like to do is networking and building relationships especially with the new user community. And so today, really what I'm asking of all of us is to start thinking about, how can we really become more engaged, how can DeSSC become more engaged with the community and help NDSF achieve some of its goals. And let's just, any ideas are going to be very welcome today moving forward, because there's a lot of new things moving forward especially with Alvin coming out of overhaul. So with that, Brian, I think Dorsey's been having a few little issues. I don't know if she's back in, she's got some issues with environmental health and safety, as you've seen in the chat. Oh, to me, she says, I'm dealing with an issue in my lab this morning, so may not be completely present. So she may not be completely present.
I'm here now.
Yeah, she's there. Okay. I can see you now, sorry. All right, so Brian and Dorsey, fire away with some of ideas of what you're planning. And I think we were thinking of the new user being at ASLO, but you can confirm some of that.
Yeah, so at our last meeting, we bounced around some ideas. We were all disappointed to have had to postpone, but with given COVID and thinking about what a new user experience really is, we didn't feel that there was an effective way to pull that off remotely through a Zoom platform that would be worthwhile. And so we then at that point said that we would think a little bit about trying to roll it out at the upcoming AGU or Ocean Sciences. I think that to match our, as Ana Luisa said, our relatively unambitious agenda, I have a relatively unambitious update. We basically punted on AGU and said that we'll do it at Ocean Sciences in February 22 here in Hawaii. That gives us some opportunity. I've kicked around a few ideas with the folks here at UH, just preliminary stages, but as we heard yesterday in absence from Bruce, the ROV here at UH has been on the uptrend, I think, and a little bit more successful. So I was kicking around an idea about maybe a site visit, if we can make the timing work out with an actual ROV to coincide with the new user workshop. And that's about all that we've got. So we've got kind of a blank slate. We're entirely open to ideas that folks might have to build upon the things that we've talked about in the past. including, as I mentioned, maybe a site visit. And so maybe I'll ask Dorsey if she wants to add anything to that for now, or we can just open it up for some ideas or discussion.
Yeah, I guess I would just add that one of the things that we have been kicking around is trying to alternate between AGU and ocean sciences so that maybe we reach a broader new user community. And so that's, not just punting on AGU this year, but there was some motivation even before COVID to start to try to tap into different types of users and not make it so AGU centric. So that was kind of some of our motivation. So that's all. I think Brian had a question.
Got my keyboard shortcuts figured out. I don't have to find the button.
Ooh.
Just go straight to audio.
mean,
Was the thought broader than the new user symposium for the whole desk meeting, or just a splinter and the symposium?
Yeah, we had started having that conversation, and I wanted to have that conversation in this meeting about our fall meeting. And are you asking whether we want to have the fall meeting at AGU or whether we want to have it at Ocean Sciences in conjunction with the new user program?
I'm jumping in because it was my understanding we were going to have it at ESLO. So, that the desk meeting, we're going to try and have it at ESLO, but we're up. Adam seems to question that.
I'm going to go ahead and support that keeping the desk meeting and the New Year's symposium coupled is important.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, because I think what was a big success with the new user is that them presenting at the desk meeting, them getting input from, they really get a lot richer experience by coupling the two. So I think that's why we decided on that. The one thing I also wanted to jump in on what Dorsey said and Brian said, the one thing that really surprised us from the annual meeting, I think it was that we had a lot of comments from new, early career, new user type people, graduate students, postdocs, that said, why aren't you having the new user meeting? Even online, it's fine. So I think we need to also remember that, we've trained a next generation of folks that actually also can learn to network online. And so, it's something that maybe the new user folks can, Brian and Dorsey can think about. Is there a way to even reach a little further by folks that can't make it to the ASLO meeting? Maybe we could have a little bit of an online component. Just a thought, but there you go.
I was just going to add that the OECI and OET will be operating out of Hawaii at that same time. So if there's value in a site visit that way, then we can try and accommodate.
Yeah, maybe we should have given the cost of venues in Hawaii, maybe we should have it on a ship.
Yeah, that would be cool.
What was the time of the ASLO meeting again?
It's February, I feel like late. Let me take a look.
It's late. It crosses over into March. It's like last week of February, first week of March.
Oh.
February 27th to March 4th.
Okay. If things go well, I'll be on a ship without telepresence. So, oh well.
Okay, any other comments related to new user other than surf lessons, which I totally agree with?
So this is Rachel from NOAA. We would definitely be interested in participating and having a role to play in the new users conference. I think we've been looking at how can we expand or just further capitalize on this network to help us build out our capabilities to reach early career scientists to bring on some of our cruises as science leads. And I think that the new users group could be a really great way to explore that option, or at least make that group aware that we have those capabilities. So definitely excited to participate there. So I just wanted to put that placeholder down for anybody that would be building out the forward-looking agenda, which, Brian, it sounds like maybe you.
Sure.
I will also know Allison Fundus has said a couple times that she's very interested in being a part of this. So keep her name on the list too as somebody to help.
Great.
Good. Okay, cool. This is exciting. So yeah, isn't it fun that we're moving out of COVID? There's things to look forward to now. Okay, the next part of the agenda was the user skills workshop. And this is something that sort of bore out of when Adam and I were chatting and getting together. And we, when we recognized that the new user workshop was not going to happen, we thought, well, it's a good timing for just finding some ways to do these skills workshops for users. And the first we thought of would be this sort of imagery skills workshop. And where we're at right now is we're in conversation. We were going to try and do it in March this year, but it was just crazy. So right now we're in conversation with Evan Kovacs from Marine Imaging Technology. He's the person that ran the workshop for NDSF. And what the plan is, and I've already stated this in the past, but the plan is it'll be a 2-day or 2 half-day workshop, about a week apart, and it would be a little less technical than the NDSF one, but more focused on thinking about what you want to achieve in your image or your video, and if once you know what you want to achieve, what is the lighting, what do you have to be thinking about in terms of composition, but also of technical aspects. So that would be the first session, and then the second session would be sort of a more hands-on critiquing of video and looking at video and saying what works and what doesn't. So we're still in the development stage of this, and I'm hoping we can actually offer the workshop sometime in the fall, and I think that's realistic. But I'm happy to take any comments or anything any of you would like to suggest. One of the other suggestions that we'll probably do is we'll involve somebody to actually discuss, the roles of chief scientist and of people in the ball and in the vans in terms of imagery and thinking about what's needed, and actually the other we have a few volunteers that are prepared to be involved in this. One of them is Mel O'Canahan, who Dan's very familiar with, but she's an artist, so she can be involved in sort of the helping guide some of the discussions of what makes a good image and not. And I think this is also important in light of what Dan talked about yesterday in terms of some of the fixed focus cameras. All of that can be brought into some of these conversations, and so I think it'd be we're excited about trying to develop the agenda. I've got a straw man agenda, but I decided not to share it because it's too straw man or woman. And with that, I can see Dan wants to say something. I may give him a chance to talk, but maybe I won't. I think I can mute him if I want. I'm just kidding. All right, Dan, tell us what you have to say.
Oh, okay, just a couple of things. Yes, I think that's a great idea. I know that the presentations that the NDSF team members had from Evan were quite successful and very sort of well received. I didn't know, and Andy may know the answer to this, I didn't know whether he actually recorded those sessions or not. The PowerPoints that were prepared for the presentations he made are available, but I didn't know whether he actually recorded him giving.
They are recorded.
lectures. Oh, great. That's perfect. Yeah,
Yeah,
because I
and-
think,
I had an opportunity to look at those because to give me an idea. Well, actually, and Andrew Thurber, who's helping on this. So we've had an opportunity to sort of see the flavor of his present, of this stuff. And so the other thing that we did think about also, which I'm going to add, this is actually kind of an ideal kind of workshop to do online. We can actually achieve it online. So I think that we should just do it now as soon as we can. Yeah.
So I just wanted to follow up. So that's good that he recorded it, and it's good that you're thinking about how to distill some of that so it's a bit more relevant to the scientists or a bit more focused on some of the science needs. That's one thing. So I'm all in favor of that, and I'm happy to help in whatever way that I can, as I've said to you. The other thing that I would mention, though, and I didn't mention it when Andy gave his presentation yesterday about the vehicles and upgrades and whatnot. And he did make the important point of the cameras are important, but without the lighting, you don't get anything. You can have the best camera in the world, and without the lights, you're sunk. So, and I would say that both vehicles, certainly Alvin and Jason, are due for a serious upgrade in lighting based on my recent experience. And not only that, but there needs to be a rethinking of placement of lights versus cameras, because we've been stuck in a model of, well, this is how the syntactic foam is, and this is where the sponson rail is, and that's where we can easily put lights. And yet those places are good for lights, but not so good for cameras, or vice versa. So I think that there needs to be a full discussion about that within each of the groups, because there's some major changes. If we're really going to make improvements, some of those changes require some modifications, if you will, to where you can actually mount lights, or similar to what Dave Lavolvo has with the D2 ROV. Where could you put other lights if you need them for certain types of science applications, like on swing arms or whatever? So those things ought to all be sort of in the mix in terms of the upgrades for imaging.
Okay, thank you. Jeff.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention in the discussions on the imagery workshop, one of the things we talked about is creating a video as an outcome, so that it would be a resource for users, a couple of weeks before your cruise and you've forgotten everything you learned at the workshop, or you didn't attend the workshop. You could get the information that would be critical to, so that it's hoped that we will actually produce that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main outcomes, which we're excited about. I mean, and Evan was up to doing it. So, yeah. Actually, Andrew said he would do it, but we decided Evan would do it better. No, I'm just kidding. All right, Adam.
I was going to say the exact same thing Jeff did, and how important that will be, because much of the content will be evergreen and useful for people, few years down the line.
Thank you guys for making sure I covered that. I appreciate it. Okay.
I'd also like to add, if my mic is not horrible anymore, that we also want to have a very short sort of cheat sheet for people sitting there, just so in addition to the 5-minute short video at the beginning, they also are constantly reminded to zoom out, focus on sort of the fundamental things that we found to be the real issues over time, to make it easier, and especially when you're in the sphere or in the van.
Yeah, and Mel Callahan worked with Dan on something that could be a straw, a beginning of that, which actually has been very helpful. So yeah, all right. So okay, so thank you guys for jumping in, but I appreciate it. Anything else we want to talk about in terms of the image? Anybody else have comments? I'm happy. You know where we are. If you have suggestions of what you think would really be helpful in a workshop like this, let us know, because we're in the phases of developing it. And so any input from the community and from you guys you all would be very helpful. It'll be fun too. I mean, I kind of enjoy this stuff. So yeah. All right, cool. So we're going to move on to the next. Oh, that's me. Maybe it's Adam Sill. So I was going to give you a quick update on, so as you know, we held a series of workshops last year that were very, very successful. We had a lot of input. Adam, how many people did we have in the end? Do this with me, please.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, in over 200 unique people attended these workshops, and some workshops, there was a series of 4 workshops. Each one was held twice. So sometimes there was 30, sometimes there was 50, but 208 unique participants.
Yeah, and the other thing that was really cool about it, and I encourage you all to just use those resources, the talks were really, really good, the recorded talks. And so I keep going back to them and find that I learn something every time I go back. So that you know, that website is there, and we can share that if anybody wants it. So as a result from those workshops, and then also just to be poised with Alvin coming out of Overhaul, the organizing committee got together and prepared a sort of a perspective piece on the workshops, but also science in the abyss and the importance of science in the abyss at multiple disciplinary levels. And Adam just put the link to the workshop. Thank you, Adam, in the chat. And we're really poised right now to find the right journal for this. We were thinking Nature level, but we're having a conversation right now. I actually have a question to everybody. You know, where do we really want to have it poised, or where do we want to submit it? But the paper is almost basically done. We just need to add references. I'm asking for comments from everybody by this week, and then we hope to submit the following week. And so I think that timing is very good for Alvin coming out of Overhaul. So it's a bit of an announcement of Alvin coming out of Overhaul, but in a way it's also a review of the status of science in the abyss. Adam, you want to add anything?
Yeah, so I want to add that there was an organizing committee for this series of workshops that included a bunch of folks here: Jeff, Anna Louise, Dorsey, Andreas Teskey, Jeff Marlowe, Tim Shank. I don't think I'm forgetting anyone. And those are the same folks who kind of gave their time to synthesizing all the discussions from the workshop and putting together this paper. And it was a big effort, slowed down by COVID, of course, but I'm really kind of grateful for all the work that everyone put in. And as Anna Louise said, I think this is going to be a very good announcement of Alvin's new capabilities, but also, a call to action for the science community and the sponsors to shine a light, if you will, on the deeper parts of the ocean.
Okay, so we'll update you. Well, we'll let you know when it comes out.
So sorry, Anna Louise, one other thing. So we held a kind of extra credit workshop on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And it was really exciting and valuable discussions. And we ought to think about how we can apply some of that kind of community consensus to desk activities, including new user program and whatnot.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, cool. Thank you, Adam. The workshop dates say 2020. That was the workshop. So yeah, the workshops were held in 2020.
Maybe Justin's pointing out, it's taken you a long time to write the paper.
It has. Gotcha. All right. Okay. Anybody else want to comment? All right. I think if not, then because we're moving along. Yeah, actually, this would be good. If any other comments, otherwise we're going to just move on to emerging technologies and other activities. Nothing. Okay. Sorry, Alice. Did you?
I don't see anything,
Okay.
but remember, we do have to want to add one person into that emerging technology, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Okay, so Andy, do you want to just give us a little bit of a wave glider update?
Yeah, sure. I'm going to, I think just maybe recap a couple of the slides that have been previously shared or presented, just to sort of reacquaint people with the concept, and then maybe Jeff will contribute a little, just because there's been some action from the perspective of trying to check the boxes, if you will, on what the appropriate next steps are. But let's see, just to recap, Wave Glider, you know, as a particular entity, is more representative in my mind of a class of tools that, so I don't think of them so much as vehicles as they are tools, in the same way that, say, an ultra short baseline system is a tool for deep submergence. I think autonomous surface craft are valuable tools that, in this case, kind of extend the footprint of the research vessel. So we're all doing these expeditions to remote parts of the world, and you know, the opportunity cost is very high. So using technology to take full advantage of that opportunity is kind of, I suspect, one, or at least I'm going to choose to draw in terms of a wave glider. It's you know, been used several times in the past with some success, but also some failure. And I think you know, we would look at the failure part as a learning experiences, partly with new technology, but also as always pointing towards the future in terms of what we really need to do to address you know, a sustainable future that has this tool as an element that users can request. You know, and just to state maybe the obvious, the Wave Glider is a great way to separate the activities when there are parallel work that a PI is interested in doing, whether that's using JSON and Sentry, or Sentry and Alvin, or whether it's actually also, you know, doing some midwater trawls or coring, or heaven forbid, rock dredges. You can do these things potentially with the use of a wave glider, because you can separate yourself from the vehicle activity. It's certainly in the case of Sentry and Alvin. So parallel ops is basically the idea. You know, I think the path forward that we advocated last go around, and I think is in DeSSC's hands to essentially endorse, as I believe at the moment, is to purchase a wave glider and you know, put it on a similar footing to the other tools and vehicles that are in the facility. So that means you know, tasking someone in our group that you know, has the responsibility for maintaining it, get spares, begin integrating it more effectively into the control system, navigation, communications, and software. So that's kind of where things, or at least the logic or rationale behind the suggestion that a wave glider be a good thing to add to the facility. But as I said, to the best of my knowledge, it is in the DeSSC committee's hands to make a clear statement as to the desirability and so on. So
It's not quite in the desk committee's hand, Andy. We have a draft document that we're just putting the finishing touches on, which will be in front of desk imminently.
okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
And the document makes the case for, well, UNOLS there's a process for adding stuff like this to the facility. So we're just putting all that information together, but desk will be getting it soon.
So stand corrected. It will soon be in the desk committee. I apologize.
Yeah, I've been cracking the whip a little bit, but it's we all use COVID as the excuse, so we can use COVID as the excuse again. Okay, great. Thank you. I like that. Did you share that same slide last year? I don't think so. I like that. The path forward.
Yeah, I
You
believe I did, but it'll be duplicated, in the packet that Alex eventually gets. So, or I'm happy to send it to whomever. I think we have a material on.
We can find it. Yeah. All right. Cool. Okay. Next is Adam on surf lessons in Hawaii. I'm getting a little punchy. I'm sorry. I'll get more serious because it's partly because it's recorded,
Anna Louise pre-recorded all her statements, so we have to keep in time because she's not actually here. She's just. All right, so I'm going to give a brief update on the Alvin Science Verification Expedition. Note that I'm using the word expedition, trying to get us away from saying cruise, which sometimes is received poorly by others. So there is an organizing team for this expedition that includes myself and Anna Louise, Jeff Seawald, Dorsey Wanless, Jeff Marlowe, Tim Shank, and Rosa Leon Zayas, who is a new user. And the objectives of this cruise, these are kind of in my view of the prioritized order, but really the top priority is to test the critical science systems on the sub that are either going to be new or refreshed or will have been out of service for a fair bit of time and make the sub ready for science. But in addition to that, we have some objectives to provide future users with some firsthand experience using the submarine, produce some documentation in the vein of the Century Cruise Planning Guide, which has been really valuable to the user community, but for Alvin. To promote diversity in deep sea science, which is something that came out of the Abyssal Science Workshop. And as always with these, the opportunity to conduct some opportunistic science. So we developed an application to participate in this activity for the community. This was done in collaboration with Alice in the UNOLS office and based on a similar application that was used for the science verification cruise in 2014, I believe it was, after the first stage of the upgrade. That application process has closed. We have 106 completed applications, which are divided somewhat arbitrarily into 26 experienced users, 68 new users, and 10 others, which might be considered, storytellers or educators or the like. We have the review process is underway by the organizing team, and we're hoping to select a number of participants where the total kind of at sea crew will be somewhere between 16 and 22. This is a fluid number that moves around as the COVID regulations and requirements change, and it's kind of changes week to week. So I think now we'll be at a higher number, but initially we're planning for a lower number. And the goal will be to divide that at-sea crew roughly equally amongst experienced users who will kind of do the heavy lift on the systems verification, and new users who will, I'm sure, contribute mightily to that, but also will be getting some of their first opportunities with the sub. We also are planning to reserve some spots for scientists from Puerto Rico and Cayman, because we'll be operating in waters of those nations and territories, and want to make sure that those research communities are represented and integrated. This is the cruise track or plan as of right now. We'll be departing from San Juan, Puerto Rico on October 7th.
So,
Okay, your slides aren't being-
can Alice just forward your slides?
Well,
I
you see the screen, Adam, we haven't seen you haven't been your slides haven't been advancing.
Really?
Yeah, we thought you were just going off on your title page. There we go. Now we see the next one.
Okay, right. All right. Well, it was just words up into that point, and you'll have them all. But all right, here's where we are.
There we go. That's it. Great.
So we're going to be starting in October 7th from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and conducting dives in the Puerto Rico Trench. This map is of that dive area, and the areas highlighted in the kind of blues to purples are the regions from 4,500 to 6,500 meters where we expect to be conducting most of the dives. We'll then transit over to the Mid-Cayman Spreading Center, and the map similarly shows the greater than 45 and less than 6,500 meter areas in blue. We're diving at both of these sites because from the workshop, we got guidance about some of the abyssal regions of the ocean that were of high interest, and being able to work in two very different tectonic environments offers opportunities to exercise the sub, doing a lot of different operations, from working at very high temperature and ultra deep hydrothermal vents to kind of sedimented slopes and outcrops in trench environments. There are a number of Alvin systems that will be kind of subject to validation and verification, and Bruce's presentation yesterday listed a whole bunch of them. From a science side, we're particularly interested in imaging, navigation, event logging, data transfer, sample collection, storage, and dive ops, which we are exploring the potential to extend the dive day in order to get sufficient bottom time. From the workshop, there was a fair bit of discussion of technologies that would augment activities by a traditional submersible, ROV or HOV. And we have included some of that in this program in the form of a full ocean depth autonomous CTD lander system that was developed by Chris Roman. This is a device that's free falls through the water column, measuring the physical chemical properties, and then uses that information to autonomously determine where to collect samples on ascent. It also can reside on the seafloor for days at a time and collect samples in that environment as well. And so we're planning on potentially integrating eDNA sampling, passive acoustics, and time-lapse imaging to that. That's going to give us some observations in waters that are even deeper than Alvin can operate, and which was again recommended from the workshop, that the connection between abyssal and hadal environments is one that we know very little about. Given the potential limits on participation and the intense interest in participating, we are going to have high ship-to-shore bandwidth to enable remote participation. We did this in the Chief Scientist Training Cruise in 2016 or 17, I can't remember the year exactly, where there was shoreside participants who would engage in the post-dive meetings and dive planning meetings and viewed that as really valuable. In fact, one of the applications I had a chance to look at said that they had done that in the past and found it was really useful and interesting. And so we're excited to do that again. We are hoping to live stream some in-dive Alvin data and image snapshots as part of upgrade to the vehicle would be a acoustic communication system that could send that information up to the ship for the purpose of engaging with the scientists on board, but it's also could be tested in terms of sending that data and information back to shore for people to engage with. And then we plan on having some remote engagement with classrooms, science centers, and media, particularly in the kind of territories and nations where we're going to be working, Puerto Rico and Cayman. The education and media engagement strategy is to be determined, but many of the applicants are deeply interested in that and have offered some suggestions. So a simplified timeline of where we are and where we're going. We've closed the application process and we're in the process of reviewing them. At the beginning of July, we will announce the in-person and shore-based participants. In mid-July, start cruise planning. There's an opportunity in early September to pre-mob some material at the Hui dock. Otherwise to San Juan to mobilize in early October. And so that's all I have. Happy to stop there and take any questions.
Thanks. Thanks, Adam. Any questions for Adam?
I have one. This is Roxanne. Adam, are you going to limit the shoreside participation, or like is everyone who applied is going to be able to do remote if they want to?
Yeah, so one of the questions we asked on the application was at what level, if you weren't on the ship, at what level would you like to engage? Would you like to be an active participant in meetings? Would you like to just observe, or would you like to just watch, a live stream of data? And I think that we have to, so the applications that are great, but just we can't fit on board, we would invite to be active participants in those meetings. I'm not sure we can manage, 150 people in a post-dive meeting. So we may have to place some limits on that, but there should be no limits on, kind of a passive participation of watching what's happening or watching those meetings proceed. Oh, I'm sorry, to answer your question, we were going to do another or separate announcement of the ability to participate remotely. So not having put in an application in this first stage will not prevent anyone from participating remotely.
Any other questions? I mean, it's very exciting that we've got so many applicants. So it's going to be a tough job to whittle that down a little bit. But this is a fun time to be in deep submergent science with this transition.
If I could ask people to do one thing, if you can cross your fingers and pray to some god that hurricane season is really light this year, that would be ideal.
And the models say it's going to be bad. Oh dear. Oh well. Okay. With that positive note, Andy, you wanted to have some comments to sort of highlight some of the DEI activities at NESF. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think the last meeting we kind of established this as an agenda item, and it clearly makes sense for us to continue that going forward. So I've got some material to share with folks that sort of captures where we are, where we're going, a little bit of progress, I guess. So I have a few slides to share on that topic. Hopefully everyone can see the first slide, and I'm going to advance it. Is that coming through so I don't go off and talk to nothing?
We see your NDSF DEI statement.
Great, perfect. Yeah, we just got an alert that Huey's having network issues. So not that it's a stable network to start with, but so if I drop off, somebody either text me or maybe in the chat or whatever. Anyway, so we've worked on something that I think is kind of a key part. It's a part of a mission statement, perhaps. So I'm gonna excuse myself and read this to you, which generally I don't want to do with slides, but you know, NDSF is committed to diversity, equity, and inclusion. As a leader in building and operating deep submergence assets that benefit the entire oceanographic community, we recognize the opportunity to make a difference by intentionally building a more diverse generation of engineers and technicians at the facility. In response to goals set within the DeSSC community last fall, NDSF is working to make internal processes more equitable in hiring and recruitment and providing training in every one of our groups. We're also developing outreach efforts to engage historically marginalized student populations. In cooperation with host institution HUI, and funding partners NSF, ONR, and NOAA, as well as other partnerships such as the Ocean Exploration Trust and the Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute, NDSF is working towards structural changes across the facility to build a culture that invites and nurtures the potential of all the engineers and technicians who do this vital work. So I guess the main takeaway in my mind for this is that the facility is a tool which will hopefully, I think, and has the potential to really be a valuable tool in helping recruit the sort of next generation of doers. And those are the engineers and operators and technicians that provide you all with the kind of access that you need to do your work. And I think we can use the facility if we proceed accordingly to really try and achieve that objective, so that hopefully we reflect the diversity that's within the user community. So that's sort of an overarching statement, I guess. And then you know, basically best practices as far as we've kind of determined and kind of view as being germane to all of this is training, you know, outreach, mentorship, recruitment, and as part of that, the idea that we can use the work that we're doing here to host internships that are great at inspiring new members of the workforce. You know, our current practices, which we kind of inventoried over the last couple of months, and I really need to offer a thank you to Mickey Bomboni, who's working with us. She's a member of the Deep Submergence Laboratory and on the administrative staff. But she and I have been working, and she's been doing the majority of this, along with a variety of other people, both inside and outside the institution, to try and pull a lot of this together. So the inventory of our current practices, I guess, is that we find ourselves perhaps deficient in what I would call, you know, current practice with regard to training. We're not reaching out as much as I think we could be, both just to describe the type of work that the facility does, but also you know, use it in terms of recruitment for folks who we might encourage to apply for various positions that we continually have open. Mentorship is something that I think is critical to all of this, and something that actually the institution and our department is taking very seriously. And then I mentioned sort of recruitment and internships. You know, we've begun to take on board in a more formal way the so-called MATE program, looking at MTS. And I mentioned collaborations with the likes of OET, for example, who've done really some leading edge work, I think, in a lot of these areas. So where we are kind of falling short, I think, is that we're not reaching all the potential candidates. And this is, you know, the sort of analogy is if you're fishing in a pond that's stocked with, you know, bass, that's pretty much all you're going to catch. So that's probably something that will, you know, in the future be broadened to make sure that we are actually recruiting in a more thoughtful way, in a broader way. You know, the mentorship and retention is critically important, and this, I think, is something that's not just specific to diversity, but it's critical to retaining members of the staff that might represent that. But I have a very strong commitment to the idea of giving people a career path and growth opportunities. I mentioned training. I think that's an area where we need to really increase awareness within the group. Outreach. We're looking at efforts to partner with schools, as I mentioned earlier, formally opening up summer fellowships for next summer. And that will likely be in collaboration with the Cooperative Institute that NOAA's established, that Woods Hole is a member of. And then, you know, simple things like housing. You know, that's something that's difficult here, but not something that we shouldn't and can't address as part of all of this. You know, sort of looking at some of the statistics, and I don't mean to run down this rabbit hole, but I think this is pretty interesting, particularly in this case in terms of gender diversity. Sort of tells you that in the world of engineering, things are you know, not great, but also generally heading, I think, in the right direction. This slide is a bit more, you know, I wouldn't say dire, but it's certainly not particularly encouraging. If you look at the two areas I've highlighted here, which would be the computer sciences, which we might draw people from more typically, as well as, of course, engineering. But these are relatively flat. And I think, you know, this perhaps tells us that we don't have an expanding candidate pool, and it informs us perhaps that we need to reach deeper into the educational sort of conveyor belt and build, you know, contributors as part of an active process during the education, so that we can draw people in earlier in their academic careers. The sort of demographics for the facility and the institution overall. You know, the NDSF total, and I won't go into happy to answer questions about this, but you know, the facility is to a certain extent divided between the Marine Operations Department and the Applied Ocean Physics and Engineering. These are individual sort of demographics for those two cohorts. Here's the one that really matters, is the aggregate sum total. That's where we stand today, and people talk about metrics, and this is a chart that you'll be seeing again because it's clearly part of how we can judge our success. You know, paid internships, next summer, we're looking to sort of aggregate our activities, which is a message I mentioned earlier. Partnerships are key. And mentorship, again, another aspect that's sort of themes. So we're going to increase our training in the institution, as many universities and research organizations are actively engaged in improving a lot of these tools. So we'll be taking full advantage of that. You know, again, the concept of outreach and being more focused and specific in that objective mentorship. I mentioned the recruitment. And, you know, I think one of our best advertising and recruitment tools actually turn out to be the staff that work in the facility. Many of you know who those people are because you've gotten to see with them. And I think what we want to do is to kind of, you know, give those folks encouragement and time and whatever kind of support so that they can be our best advertising. Housing sounds mundane, but it isn't. And, you know, the idea of setting goals for change and defining some of the accountability of this is an area that is nascent, I would say, but part of what we really have to do as we track this really important topic. So happy to answer any questions. This material, as we mentioned before, will be available on the UNOL's website for folks to refer to. But anyway, so that's a quick update, or not so quick.
That was awesome. Thank you. Really. There's a comment from Layla in the chat box that you may like to see.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's exactly that sort of thing, Layla, that we want to really tap into. And I've referenced several times the NOAA Cooperative Institute, which I really think has this concept baked into it. And there are several different aspects to the potential opportunities that the Cooperative Institute has to bring value to a variety of stakeholders, in this case, NDSF, and in particular in this topic. I think it's a low-hanging fruit for us. So we're going to run through that door in a big way. And we have, you know, tried to synchronize ourselves with these sort of opportunities. The one that
setting up networks that our institutions are, you know, training great students and then, you know, handing them off for additional training somewhere else and then even bringing them back. I think that this is definitely one of the ways forward. So where we can help, please let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that, you know, who wouldn't want to drive a submarine or a robot or explore the unknown reaches of the ocean, right? That's just such an opportunity for us, I think, to inspire that we're going to seize that and really run with it. So.
Thank you. Roxy, you have a question.
Sure, yeah. Thanks so much, Annie. That was really great. It's great to see all this new stuff. I have a comment and a question. The question is, I know who we just hired. I don't know if they're calling a director of DEI, some larger position about DEI. Have you interfaced with that person yet to talk about NDSF? Or how do you anticipate that being the connection to that position now?
Yeah, so you know, yes and no. As far as the specific individual that has recently been appointed at the institution, it's too early for us to have had any meaningful interaction. I think you know, we're trying to get perhaps in some ways ahead of some aspects of what the institution is doing writ large. And that's the benefit of having a facility and they can operate well in coordination with the host institution, but it doesn't have to be completely sort of locked into what who he is doing, as far as I see it. So we have some freedom, and I'm fully expect to exercise that freedom. Having said that, clearly at the institution level, and I see Rob's hand up, so he'll add to this because he's closer to the institution than I am. That, you know, there's real opportunity, and so, you know, one of the people that has been most supportive internally or at all has been Gwyneth Packard, who we've been really a shining light on this topic. And she's given up she's a senior engineer in our department, but she's given up a huge amount of her time and has been a fantastic resource for us. So yeah, very much a work in progress.
Thanks. So Rob, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to add to Roxanne, your question, and Andy, I was actually multitasking when you began your talk, so I wasn't sure if you mentioned it or not, but I have had the opportunity to have quite a bit of interaction with the candidate that's been hired and starts August 1st. A lot of the focus tends to be on the academic side of institutions like ours. And one of the challenges that I've put forward is the fact that marine operations and NDSF and these kind of more hands-on and seagoing is a fantastic opportunity to really make a difference, perhaps even more quickly than we might in some of the other areas. So this is very much on, her name is Natalie Navarez, and it's very much on her radar to work with us as a whole, part of the institution, as a place to really jumpstart our efforts.
Great. And I just want to make one comment, which is, or sort of suggestion, which is, I don't know if you've interfaced with the PEP program in Woods Hole at all. That's a summer internship program that I think goes to many of the institutions in Woods Hole for summer, and they have been very successful in bringing in underrepresented minority interns for the summer. So they may be an organization to work with if you want to bring in summer interns that way.
Thank you.
Great, thank you guys. That was a very productive conversation, and great to see your activity, Andy, and moving forward. Nice. So I'm going to, before Dan jumps in, we're going to have Brett Freiberger jump in, because Andy reminded us that there was a new and important effort starting at NDSF, and so Brett's going to just highlight some of that to us now, and then Dan, you can jump in.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Some of you may know me. I am the archivist at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. And recently, I have been working on a lot of film projects. COVID kind of brought that on. And part of that, of course, is providing digital content to a lot of not only on-site scientists, but off-site, as well as kind of production groups and things like that. So we came across issues, preservation issues and condition issues with a lot of the historic Alvin film. And we were able to apply for a grant back in January through the Council on Library and Information Resources. And we're awarded the grant in May for $48,000 to really kind of kick off this program to start digitizing and preserving all of the Alvin video that we have, which is all of it pretty much. We are starting at the very beginning. So we're starting with 16mm and 8mm film reels. From even before Alvin existed. We have all of the fabrication of the parts documented at the factory, as well as the assembly. In this first section of video that'll take about a year to preserve and make available, covers up to dive 1000. So that is all, reel-to-reel film and some very early magnetic film formats. So we're really, really excited to be able to start this project. We have tens of thousands of different formats of magnetic tape documenting the dives of Alvin, as well as Jason and some of the other submersibles as well. I do have a sample that I want to kind of share with everybody, so you kind of all have an idea of some of the stuff that we're working with. This section right here is from one of our 16mm films that was saved. There were some tears in it that the conservator was able to put back together, but I thought this was a fun slide to show, or video to show, because this is the first time Alvin goes into the water completely assembled. So you can see it's nothing super fancy. There's not a lot of fanfare, but what this represents historically, not only kind of in terms of NDSF and oceanographic research, but also culturally, because what Alvin means to the community, but also the wider impact that it ends up having. So we have a lot of these types of tapes that show these early tests, but most importantly is kind of the preservation aspect that's going to be coming with this. And this portion right here is from Alvin Dive 3571. This is on a magnetic tape. A magnetic tape was only meant to last about 10 to 15 years. So like VHS and Betacam and all that type of stuff. So this is from 2000. Bruce was actually the pilot for this. The chief scientists were Delaney and Tivy. And this was to the Endeavor Ridge. And it was in June of 2000. So this is a 21-year-old tape. And this is before conservation. So you can see kind of how the emulsion is starting to come apart for some of the tape. And it's causing all this magnetic distortion as well. So we sent one of these tapes as a sample to our vendor. And this is that same section of tape after it's been to the vendor.
Brett, sorry to interrupt, but I think we're still looking at the first deployment of Alvin.
Yeah, but that's because
Okay.
of the internet. I mean, I think it's just, it takes a while.
Yeah, I think I was just about to arrive at this time, but not on the planet.
All right. Is it still on the same video?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Okay. All right. Let me figure this out right quick. How about now?
okay. It switched. Yeah.
That's something different.
Okay, but okay. So this is what I was talking about the magnetic degradation of the emulsion of the magnetic tape, because it's several layers that are held together. This doesn't actually have any sound on it either. And then the other tape that I am looking for. All right. Can you see the improved sample?
Yes.
Or is it still on
That's
the?
amazing. No, yeah, we can see.
Yeah. So sorry, let me go back and play it for you. So this is after conservation. The conservator was able to put it through a process called baking, which puts the emulsions back together. We were able to recover the audio portion of this, which is obviously really fun for the chit chat that occurs between the pilots and the observers, but also the musical selection. There's some really interesting playlists that Alvin pilots have put together that I have learned over this period of time. So I just kind of wanted to update you all that we are able to really start to get this project going. You know, it's going to be a multi-year project. You'll probably be hearing from myself and some others on my staff as we progress through this, because we want to start reaching out to the scientists and to the pilots and things like that and let them know what we're all doing with this historic work that they've done. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but that's pretty much everything for my update.
Wow, that's a very exciting project for you as well, you know. All right, so there are quite a few questions. So I'm going to start from the beginning, which is Vicky. I see your hand is up.
Yeah, thanks. This is really great. Really happy to see this happening. This is something I've been really interested in helping to move along for a long time. So I'm very happy to see that you're making progress. I just wanted to let you know that a few years ago, with some content that I got from Dan, we did some digitizing of a bunch of different videos from different platforms, and I have an inventory of that somewhere, and Dan has copies of those, and we've also pushed them to YouTube. So we should definitely talk and connect so that we don't repeat things or learn from whatever's been done.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great. I'm going through all of Bill Lang's videotape from about 1980 until recently. So we're doing a big inventory project like that to kind of get everything consolidated and know what we have.
Awesome.
Right. Well, thanks, Vicki.
Great. Brian Mitson.
Brett, apologies in advance, but you raised the topic, so you're on the spot. Sorry. So archiving and video and imagery has been a topic of these meetings for several years now, and you know, this is the business meeting. we usually have a showcase meeting and a business meeting. Can you guys hear me okay? It says my connection is unstable.
Yeah, I
It's
can
pretty
hear you.
good. Yeah.
Okay. So the question I'm going to ask is the WHOI reporting on income earned from the archive. And a little background on the topic is it was agreed that thanks, Glazer. It was agreed that WHOI could retain copyright to the imagery from this federally funded, mostly federally funded activity, as long as the income when it's leased for commercial use is disclosed, that it remains free for educational and research uses, that when archive material is used, there's attribution from the original science investigator, if known, and that that user would be contacted. Can you give me an update on any of those topics, either attribution, copyright, income, any of that?
I cannot. As the archivist, I am completely removed from all of that. Jane Doucette and Ken Costel here at WHOI would be the ones to get that type of information from you. I mean, our intention is that each one of these videos will be connected to metadata that does represent all the individuals that were involved with it, so that that information is rightfully conveyed. We have standard, usage type language that we have for anything that comes from the archives. So included in that is what the sample is, who it's from, in terms of who the research was done by. As far as licensing though, I cannot answer that. I am not on that side. I'm only on the, oh, you're for education purposes? Yeah, please. I will help you as much as I can. I'm on that side.
So Brian,
Thanks for that.
to your question, if I'm not mistaken, and Adam might recall this, I think we reported perhaps last year or worst case 2 years ago, but I recall some update on the licensing, and unfortunately it was a paltry sum, which perhaps means that we're not really marketing the unique characteristics properly, but I think it was a small amount of money. I'm sure I could dig it out for you if you're interested.
No, and it's requested annually to report on the income at this meeting, at the business meeting. It's typically in the 50K range, which is on a relative scale of the investment paltry, but it's just one of those things.
I would just make a brief comment, Andrew. I'm sorry to jump in, but in terms of this, how much money we get from imagery business, we have been doing this for a long time, decades. And Brian's right, we do normally report this out. It's a number that generally Rob or Andy or somebody gets through the folks that deal with the licensing. I don't think, Brian, it's been in the 50K range. I think you got a decimal place wrong. It's been like maybe a few K, maybe kind of sort of, and doesn't take into account the fact that WHOI is contributing its overhead to pay the people to deal with the licensing, and that's part of our responsibility to do as the operator for sure. But it is quite a small sum. And I think the key thing that we've been trying to focus on is making sure, as Brian, you said, that we're giving due attribution to whatever the funding agency is that funded the work, and to the scientists that have written the proposals that are doing the work, and all of that. So that's one of the key things that we've been trying to do. And actually, one of the discussions that we've been having recently with some of these recent cruises that have quite a bit of content going out to social media is figuring out how to deal with making sure we're appropriately citing and referencing the funders and the people who need to get credit through the social media hooks, which are very limited, right? And so we're trying to figure that out too. But we've been talking with the folks in the WHOI legal department as well as in the media department about this, and they realize that they've got to come up to speed on it for sure.
Yeah, thanks. And we can put a pin in this topic because it's something we've spent hours on in the past. And that small number you described is actually what I'm after, because the purest among are aware that WHOI licenses video that's procured with this federal funding, whereas other providers and other agencies, NOAA, for example, provide it free to all for any use. So that's all. Just really emphasizing that attribution component.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for bringing it up. Andrew Thurber has a question, and then Pete.
Thanks. This is really exciting. I guess I have a multi-part question that hopefully will be easy. Is this archived imagery going to be easily available to the community via some sort of web portal, or is there going to be a way for us to access this easily?
So it won't be super easy. Like, you won't be able to go on your own. You'll have to request it for now. Over COVID, we've been in talks with the communications team here about getting a video asset management system to be able to provide better access to these types of files and things like that. That's a work in progress. But for right now, once the files are digitized, they are available to anyone that requests them. You know, we would just set up a link drive situation for the patron to get access.
Thanks. That would be wonderful if it was more easily accessible, especially if we don't know what we're looking for. My follow-up question might be highlighting my ignorance, but I wonder if you can answer whether the format that they're being archived in plays well with some of the emergent neural network analysis of imagery to essentially make it so it can easily play in and plug into that as it's coming more and more online.
Yeah, so my understanding is that the file formats will be set up to cooperate. That was part of the discussions with communications, is that we want these file formats to be operating with the asset management system that we have and all of the AI capabilities and all that type of stuff. Excuse me, that'll come with that. You know, I'm operating off of a very different set than you all. You know, my archival standards are probably different than yours. But the file format that we're having everything in is we have master and presentation, and they were standard for my field, and they were operable with other systems. That is what I was told, at least with the video asset management systems that communications was shopping a couple of months ago. But I'm not sure what we're going to settle on. So for right now, yes. Down the road, unsure.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of interesting comments in the chat, but we'll save the chat and share that too. But Pete.
Thanks, Ana Luis. Just a quick question. I had Andrew's question as well. Thank you for answering that. I'm curious about how the publicly available video from Schmidt and OET and others may be playing into a change in demand. Well, I guess first, is there a change in demand for Hui video? Question one. And two, do you think that relates to SOI and others? Thank you.
There is a jump in demand. You know, my COVID experience was basically watching video footage that we have of Alvin and video footage that we have for Bob Ballard. Those were the two huge requests that I was working on during that period of time. And there were several, I mean, books, podcasts, a documentary about Bob Ballard through Nat Geo, a PBS documentary about Alvin, who's also going to start doing one, I think, on Angus. Because we've been able to provide some of these samples, they've started to look more into the submersible history. I know for a fact that the PBS folks are interested in doing something about Angus and the Galapagos, specifically because of the Alvin footage we were able to digitize and provide to them. I cannot say if the rise in interest is related to what you mentioned. I'm not familiar with that. But I have seen over the last year, even us providing this digital content, raising interest in those parties. There's even a Spanish documentary being made about the Palomares incident as well that used a lot of Alvin footage. So there's just really great opportunities to raise visibility about this stuff that we're kind of seeing play out almost in real time with the productions that are going on.
Thank you. Adam.
Just to follow on what Pete asked and what Brett was saying, the lack of a kind of video asset management and a place for people to go to get the video makes it even more difficult to track, what video is being used, because it's much easier to go directly to a scientist who knows what they have and what they can offer. I fear that there's a great deal of material that's used, and I don't mean necessarily commercially, but for all sorts of things that we're not getting to keep good track of. And I think that's our loss, right? Because it helps validate the existence of the facility and the archive to know exactly who is using it and how often.
Yeah.
Okay, I thank you very much, Brett, and thank you, Andy, for bringing this up. And we need to move along now. So, because we're going to start running late. Dan, you have you requested a slot to talk about the sites and sonar data processing support. And so please go ahead and if you can, keep it succinct. And then after that, it'll be Adam on machine learning and AI centers. Okay, go for it, Dan.
Okay, just hang on a second. I need to share my screen.
Oh, do you want to share? Go for it, Dan.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So will you stop sharing?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, hold on a sec. Okay. Let me close that. So I'm assuming that you folks can see this. I need to show this in this mode here. So you're seeing my first slide?
Yes.
Okay. So yes, thank you for the opportunity to chat a little bit about this topic of side scan sonar. Ross Parnell-Turner, my colleague at Scripps, who's involved in the EPR research that we have going right now, and I were thinking about this, and we felt that it was an appropriate topic to bring to the desk's attention and to seek sort of input and sort of dialogue and deliberation on this. I've just put a couple of bullets here. These are sort of the four, if you will, sort of take-home bullets about this topic. First being that the capacity for acquiring side scan sonar has over the past 20 years changed quite a bit from a deep-towed side scan instrument that Hui operated, the DSL 120, that collected excellent data at 120 kilohertz at about 100 meters off the bottom. At a certain point, though, it became obvious that we needed to try to transition out from using that vehicle, and so it was transferred to the University of Hawaii. They did an excellent job of operating that and producing map sets with that system. But then the intention always was to try to integrate a side scan sonar into the NDSF AUV. And that has been done superbly with Sentry, and Sentry has been operating a side scan, I think almost since it started operating. So just to fast forward here a bit, the key point here is that the AUV Sentry team is doing an excellent job in terms of how they are acquiring sonar data. They have been upgrading their sonar systems, both the multi-beam and the side scan sonar. The side scan system was recently upgraded so that now it's a tri-frequency system. So they've been doing a great job in terms of the hardware. I think they also have made a very good and important decision in terms of focusing on a multi-beam bathymetry data processing pipeline, which they execute at sea superbly, so that scientists can have real-time, near real-time maps to dive on with either Jason or with Alvin. That's been a huge advantage over the last few years in terms of doing deep submergence science, to have a very detailed map that you can use to then plan your dives with. So all of that is great. One of the things, though, that Ross and I felt was important to point out is that at the same time that we're collecting multi-beam data, by and large, and I just checked with Sean Kelly, who's out on the Thompson right now, and it is true that in most cases, when we acquire the multi-beam data, we're at least acquiring low frequency side scan data as well. And in many cases, those data are looked at and sort of crudely processed at sea to make sure that there are data in those files. But after that, they're not really processed. And side scan sonar processing takes a fair bit of effort and expertise and experience to accomplish. And so we're basically acquiring a pretty high resolution and quite important data set that maybe to say that it's being orphaned is a little extreme, but it basically is not being fully utilized and archived in a way that it becomes useful for future scientists. So let me just show a few examples, and then we'll get back to this last point. So number one, side scan sonar data are not just for marine geologist types like me. They in fact can be quite useful for a range of scientists working in a range of depths. Here's an example of a paper dealing with side scan sonar imaging of coral reefs and hard grounds. People who are interested in corals, both shallow and deep sea, oftentimes look to side scan sonar to be able to go to the places where they think they'll be most productive in terms of sampling them. There are two committee members on desk right now, Scott White and Dave Caress, who have a lot of experience with sonar systems and side scan sonar. This is a slide from a paper that Scott just made me aware of that he and a student produced on the Galapagos Rift, basically using machine learning to come up with very detailed maps showing facies, volcanic facies, if you will, along the Galapagos Spreading Center. In our particular case at the East Pacific Rise, Ross and I have been working for the last several years, and some of this data predates that. Some of it is data that Morris and I collected in 2001, all the way on the left. And then Scott and Adam Sewell collected the data that's the second panel to the right, the 2007 data. This is basically showing you the 950 North area and the eruption. And all of these black little finger-like stringy things are lava flows that erupted in the 2005-2006 eruptions. And these two right-hand panels show you the much higher quality character, if you will, of the Sentry data compared to the DSL 120 data. And then just to make that point even more nailed down, here's an example of the 2018 data that we acquired, showing both the low frequency data, 120 kilohertz, and then the right, the 410, which has an incredible amount of data. It's run, of course, closer to the bottom, but it has an enormous amount of data that you start to get down to specific individual features and processes on the seafloor. And lastly, I'll just sort of toggle back and forth between these things. These are maps made with our 2019 Sentry data at DPR, and I'm just toggling back and forth. Ross produced these slides, and they're very illustrative because you do get a lot more out of the side scan in terms of an acoustic facies and the character of the lava flows than you can simply by looking at the bathymetry. You get a lot out of the bathymetry, don't get me wrong, but the side scan data is extremely informative. Okay, so enough of the pretty pictures. I'm just going to cycle back up here. So the question that I have, or that we have, and if Ross wants to chime in after this, I'll let him, is can we somehow figure out about how side scan data can be more routinely processed post-cruise, perhaps using a facility or an expert approach that would ensure that we can get data into MGDS, into the National Data Archives that really are useful, not just a bunch of ones and zeros on a digital file. So I will stop sharing there, and I will let whoever wants to chat. Ross, I don't know if you want to add anything to what I've just said, and then just so the committee knows, we have chatted with Scott, and we've shared these with Scott and Dave a bit in advance, just to get their input, and so we're happy to sort of field questions, or we're happy to have a discussion about this at this point.
I guess the only thing I'd like to add is that there's this fantastic opportunity to use side scan in conjunction with the photography that Sentry is now capable of that we were talking about yesterday, and the new multi-beam system on Sentry, to start using machine learning techniques to move beyond just coloring in maps. And Scott's group has been doing this for several years now, but there's a side scans has moved on now that Sentry is carrying this tri-frequency side scan sonar. There's a real opportunity here, but I think we have a gap in our ability to process the data post-cruise.
Okay, this is Dave Kress. So in the emails and so forth, I think you were highlighting the Chesapeake software package. Is that what you've been using?
Yes, that is currently what NDSF, the Sentry Group, uses, and I know Scott's had a fair bit of experience with that as well. But and it's also what Greg Curris has used, which is the fellow that we've gone to, Ross and I, for helping us with the side scan processing for the Sentry data.
Okay. Yeah, I've never looked at that package. You lay out what some of the costs and so forth are associated with that. Is it it does everything that you're interested in, and secondly, what's the nature of the output?
Basically, what you saw in that last slide was an example of what it can produce. It does produce sort of excellent data, and Scott actually should probably jump in here because he's got more direct experience than I have. But the sort of GUIs and the graphical displays and the capabilities that you have using that software make the processing a lot easier, and especially if you're doing multiple dives in the same area where you're trying to mosaic them together, it's much more efficient.
Well, it's output. I see mosaics. I see images. Is it outputting corrected side scan that's in a swath form that's laid out on the seafloor? You know, are there intermediate products that can be archived, or is the output the maps?
Well, it does all of those things. It'll do line by line. It'll give you the potential to overlay the lines with different weighting in terms of which ones you prefer to be on top versus on the bottom, depending on how you've run your survey. I mean, I think the question of what ultimately would be the quote unquote data product, or the files that would be generated that would be suitable for ingesting into the archives. It could be geotiff mosaics. It could be line by line backscatter imagery. I don't know. I mean, I think there's any number of possibilities, but certainly what would be more useful is to have something like that rather than lines which really have not been processed, not been bottom detected almost to any extent. And that's really, I mean, as you well know, Dave, you know, if you're working at the EPR, you've got it pretty easy, more or less. Still not totally, not totally sorted out. But if you're working in the Mid-Atlantic Ridge and you've got lots of bumpy topography, then dealing with all the bottom detects and cleaning all that up, it gets to be much more complicated and means it's a little bit more intensive in terms of doing the processing. So,
well, right. I mean, that really the key thing is that you're laying out the raw time series onto the seafloor. And so in a context of AUV work, that means you get your bathymetry done, you wind up with a bathymetry model, and then you go back and you take the time series and you project that onto the actual seafloor.
Yes. And in fact,
then you take that data that's been laid out on the seafloor and you mosaic that.
Yeah, but and that's one of the key things is that the Sentry Group in general, because they don't have time to do this, they are not, they're sort of looking at it and QCing it to some extent, but they're not going back to they're not starting from a final nav product, which is what you would be doing, because you have fully processed the multi-beam data. You've looked at all your crossings. You've done all of that due diligence, and you've come up with the best solution for what the near bottom multi-beam is. And that navigation is, okay, locked in, final. Then you would use that as your starting point for how to process the side scan.
No, that's exactly right. You do not get started on your side scan until you are done with
That's
it.
Right.
I apologize for interrupting, but we really are running out of a little bit of time in terms of, so, I mean, what I'm getting it from what, and Vicky, I'm going to let you ask your question in a few secs, but what I'm getting at, what I'm hearing is that you are requesting that Century actually process, or somebody process this data a little bit further so that it's in a more usable format.
I think that it's a topic worthy of discussion, because right now we're spending a lot of money acquiring data that's being archived, but it's kind of useless in the form that it's in.
So I think that it sounds like this is a bigger discussion than the 10 minutes that we gave you, right?
I think so. I think it's kind of a subcommittee here.
Yeah, so I think this is something that Dave, you and Scott and I, we can discuss at the closed meeting, and maybe follow up with with sort of a subcommittee discussion on this. But Vicky, why don't you ask your question, and then we really do need to move on.
It's really more of a comment, I think. I think that acquiring data is really the service. What the UNOLS fleet does is it acquires data all the time that's not directly used by the science parties, and it's not always produced into a product. So there's a bit of a fuzzy line here. I understand the value of side scan, of course, but I also think we should have a holistic view on this and think about precedent. Like, we're not asking for final photo mosaics, I don't think, to be generated, or other products. So we got to figure out the rational boundary between facility or some other community effort and science. And I think it's a very good conversation to have, and I think it should be part of what we're doing with the data review and however we should engage with DeSSC on this as well.
Good.
I think that's some of these lines get a little fuzzy, and so I think that's a really good point, Vicky. You know, what are the you know, the levels of products that you want from the data? All right, thank you very much for bringing that up, Dan.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to the last part of this section, and then we really have an open discussion, which we'll try to encompass and embrace. But Adam brought up the really cool idea, or the cool, well, making us aware of this new program, or these new centers. So Adam, I'm going to let you go for it. Thank you. And remember, Adam, if you've got more slides, you're going to have to forward them.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I think I got it nailed, but we'll see. Thanks, Anna Louise. Yeah, I wanted to raise the topic of artificial intelligence and machine learning in our community, and it's already seeped into a lot of the discussion so far. I've heard it mentioned a number of times. Before I started, I wanted to take a couple minutes to explain the Ocean Exploration Cooperative Institute, because that's also been mentioned a few times, and I'm not sure that people are really familiar with it. So if you bear with me for just a minute, this Cooperative Institute is in its second year. It is funded by NOAA Ocean Exploration and includes 5 partners: WHOI, University of New Hampshire, University of Southern Mississippi, OET, and University of Rhode Island. And what this Cooperative Institute is kind of an integrated ocean exploration enterprise that aims to accelerate exploration of the oceans through development of new technologies and operational concepts, applying those new approaches to the US EEZ and to ocean exploration data, and training the next generation of ocean explorers. I've got the website listed there, oeci.org, and I would encourage you to go to the website and see what this Cooperative Institute is. I put up a list of the projects that are going to be undertaken in FY22, and it's really impressive. All of these are collaborative projects between multiple institutions, but they include many topics that I think are super relevant to DeSSC in our community, including co-robotics and teleoperations, kind of new vehicle development, cloud computing, education and internships, as well as some machine learning, and which is why I wanted to just highlight it here. So go to the website or contact me to learn more about this cooperative institute and the work that it's taking on. All right, returning to this topic. For robotics, there are the 3 Ds of robotics: dull, dirty, and dangerous. We have taken great advantage of robots to do these activities in the ocean that we don't want to do or are dangerous or not fun to do. And I think machine learning, which is a subset of AI, has the same kind of context around it, that when you have a ton of data and you're trying to make decisions and trying to make discoveries, you want to do the things that a human does, but we just don't have enough hours in our day to do it. And that's where machine learning really shines. Just to give you a sense, the whole of science is kind of catching on to machine learning. I did a literature search of machine learning plus all these topics: deep sea, benthos, ROV, AUV, submarine. And there's just this really kind of growth industry of machine learning and people taking advantage of these new techniques to look at data that they already have or that they're collecting. And you can see that the rate of increase of publications using those terms is greatly exceeding that of just all publications in general. And it's not unique to our community. This is true, in agriculture science and sociology and everything else. It's just becoming a really important tool, and one that I think many of us are already using. I had some examples of some recent work, but I just wanted to make the point that sometimes people are using this to look at data and make predictions or interpret data that without having a human in the loop. But it's also being used for kind of operational needs. There's an example from Kakani Kacha of controlling an AUV using machine learning, of taking data from pressure sensors and converting that into velocity. So it's not just applied to our science topics, but it's also applied to our operations as well. Vicky mentioned a couple days ago that I have a project starting up to automate video processing. The concept here is that we collect a huge amount of video, and oftentimes we have people spending 24 hours a day making highlight clips from it. And what we're going to attempt to do here is to automate that process by taking all the data associated with the video, whether it's the position or altitude of the ROV or how well focused the video is, and using that to divide up video automatically and place value on clips that are trained by what we already have, which is a whole bunch of video and a whole bunch of highlight clips. So just to let you know that this is a project that's getting started and one that may apply very well to many of the NDSF operations as well. So getting to the point, NSF, NOAA, probably ONR, everyone is putting a big emphasis on artificial intelligence and machine learning. NSF in particular sent out a dear colleague letter to the geoscience community saying that they want proposals for workshops where communities get together and try and solve big problems with machine learning. And I think that that our community ought to try and get a seat at this table. Our science is data rich. We're heavily invested in autonomy, and those are some key attributes of what works really well with machine learning and AI, both for science and operations. And as I mentioned, there's lots of people in this Zoom call who are already using machine learning. But I have the sense that this is being done in isolation, that there's not a lot of coordination right now, and there's a lot of reinventing of the wheel. So I think that if we did have more coordination, we would have a better chance to more rapidly and broadly apply these techniques to all sorts of problems. These are somewhat problem agnostic in the sense that the same methodology can be applied to very different questions. So my suggestion is that DeSSC or an interested set of community members get together to evaluate what's going on in the field in terms of machine learning and AI efforts, look what's going on in terms of coordination efforts in other fields, and contribute at a minimum to a workshop for our community or for the ocean science community writ large, with the idea that one day we ought to be a part of a AI center somewhere that can really help us utilize these emerging techniques to improve our science. So that's all I wanted to share. I know I zipped through that really fast. I'm not sure we have time for discussion, but I think it's something that we ought to consider. Thanks.
Adam, thank you. That's wonderful. And that's a great sort of stimulus for our community to think about. I'm hoping that folks are gonna jump in and I think we should spend a little bit of time discussing this, and this kind of leads into, sort of the open discussion of how can we make a difference in our field. So, so anybody want to just comment or want to lead something like this, or anybody?
Adam, I'll say that this is something we've talked about and are playing with over here too. It also has a lot of ties to AI machine learning that ties into network analysis used in microbial communities. So this can be a much broader nexus point than just image processing. So I think it's a really good idea. And I think the question is, what's the path forward? Is it an RCN? Is it a specific workshop request through the DCL, or how to make it happen? Definitely like to play in that role.
Layla?
Yeah, I think the comment that a lot of us are doing this on our own and stumbling when we could be charging ahead is completely accurate. And I would support organizing an effort like this too. And as Andrew just pointed out, we're going there with microbial research, but not going there very quickly. And I have some wonderful colleagues at the Naval Research Lab that are really leading the charge on sediment predictions using Spartan data sets for really regional to global analyses. And I know that they would be interested in this. I stop short of volunteering them, but I don't think that it would be very hard.
Thank you. And, I think this is something maybe we can also defer to sort of a desk discussion or a desk committee agenda item and address. And we'll have Adam lead the whole effort in the end. But.
Well, I did get a chance to talk with Candace Major, and I'm wondering if Brian has any insight from the NSF side, the extent to which these AI centers that are coming down the line, tie into kind of the big infrastructure boom that's headed our way potentially if Congress ever passes anything, but also the extent to which GEO or OCE already has efforts going in this direction that we can plug into, or is looking to have efforts go in this direction from our community.
I wish I did have more specific and useful encouragement to provide. I think it's super interesting, and the DCL, pretty much sums up the GEO perspective on AI. We're moving at the speed of government, and this is the first step in engaging community interest and potential investment. So I'm sorry.
Oh, that's great. No, I appreciate it. Anna Louise, I will volunteer to kind of help out in my ex officio role on desk, if that still exists, and or just as an interested community member, because I do think that there is a great deal of potential for working together and making rapid progress.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is thank you for just highlighting it. It really is, you know, there's this strong wave for the future, but like just the other day we had a seminar. Somebody was using agent-based kind of AI for making videos of evolution. I mean, there's just so many possibilities, you know, and so I think it would be really behoove us to get involved, even if it's at the base level. Adam, I think I've put this on our agenda for our closed session, and we'll definitely continue this discussion and move on it, because I think it's when do we know when the deadline is for that call?
You know, the Dear Colleague letter came out in November, I think, of last year, but I do think it's kind of an open topic for them, and I'm not sure how much interest they have gotten, but when I've talked to folks at NSF, they're pretty excited when anyone else is excited about this, you know.
Okay. All right, cool. All right.
Anna Louise, this is Tim. I'd offer that ONR is investing heavily in the basic research of AI and machine learning, not for any specific science or technology area. Just it's an avenue of significant interest to ONR, and again, a lot of investment in just the basic research of AI itself, machine learning itself. That is a long way to go in those areas as well. A lot more to be learned. So I will mention this back to the former member of our department who has a specific interest in AI machine learning at ONR, and at least let him know that there's a community-specific application for AI machine learning effort going on as well.
You know, and Tim raises a good point that there in the AI ML world, there's a lot of practitioners and many fewer kind of developers, right? And I think our community is probably a lot of kind of practitioners, but I do think that if we can connect with the folks who are building these systems and models as well, then I think we'll be even better off, you know.
Sorry, great, thank you. All right, we'll move forward on that. We have, you know, we're nearly at when we were going to adjourn the meeting, but I do want to just have an open discussion and from the community and from everybody. Oh, well, no, we also still, Bruce is waiting in the hangar right now. So, so first of all, I'd like to still just have the open discussion. Are there any ideas other than what we've talked about in the past in terms of how to increase NDSF vehicle utilization, how to really do boot camps like we've done in the past? And I think I'm going to just wait on the COVID lessons learned since we're running out of time and Bruce is waiting. So anybody want to jump in with some strategies, anything new that you would like us to start thinking about in terms of how to engage the community more in NDSS assets, other than what we're doing already? And if there's nobody, well, you know, I think we're all kind of tired too. So maybe put both, you know, feel free to send us comments about those two aspects, thoughts about COVID lessons learned, and if there's any ideas that any of you have in terms of things you'd like to see DESC be doing in terms of optimizing NDSF vehicle utilization, please let us know. And I can see Adam's about to jump in because did you want to know? You didn't? Okay, you've got your, mute yourself then. Okay, so I think I'm going to just move along. Is that okay, Alice? Yeah, okay. So has Bruce been texting you and he's waiting eagerly?
Yes.
Okay.
We just readmitted him, so he should be here.
So what I'd like to do is have Bruce show us around, and then if there's any other business after that, please put that in, maybe put it in the chat so we can address it, and then we'll adjourn the meeting and take a short break, and we'll have a DESC working session after that, and hopefully all DESC members can still stay on, but we can discuss it. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for all those who have contributed up till now, and let's step over to Bruce.
Hang on, guys. I'm just on my way over there, so give me just a moment. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Good. All right. There's me. Let's see if I can switch it around. Here, I'll just do it this way. All right. You guys see where we are here? Hello?
Yes, we can.
All right, here we go. Look. Let's see what we got here. Here we are. Hi, guys. Can you guys wave to the DESC meeting? Hi, guys.
If you put it on, everyone, you probably know this, but if you put it on in the upper right-hand corner where it says view, and if you click to speaker, then you get a bigger picture of Bruce there.
Can I do that, or is that you?
No, that's on our end. Go ahead.
All right, you do it on our end. So here, let's do a little walk around. You can see the front end of the sub, and all the big bits of the foam have been going on. So we've got most of the new foam. You can see some of the work up here. Rick and Rose are working on wiring the sub. And I think this is really cool right here. Look, if you guys can see this, these are two of the brand new ballast spheres. And this is the one of the brand new hydraulic systems that went in today. There's one on either side. So that's a brand new hydraulic plant, one on the opposite side. And they're going to power a new variable ballast pump. So you can see it's really starting to look a lot like Alvin. We're coming around the back.
Hey, Bruce, I'm just gonna tease you, but can Bruce hear me? He can hear me.
I can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, you know how we always tell people not to zoom in and out quickly on. So
well, just say
slow
no.
down, show an image, and stop, and then let us.
So here we go, back end of the sub, right? You can see some of the new foam here and the big pieces. That's Rod Katnack up there. We're working the big block of foam back here. Okay. And I'm going to move now. Come over here. That's Hugh Papano working on the starboard J-box. Hi, Hugh. And you can see back here on the rear end, the big housings in the new holder. And let me move in a little bit so I can show this. This is one of the new motor control pods that were designed here. And the controllers are in there, and you can see a couple more. And they slide in on these really slick rail systems. So a lot of really new, amazing, really high quality design work done by the folks to make this. It's going to be the best sub that we've ever brought out of the overhaul. I'm going to come back over here. We got Nick down here working on the new hydraulic plant. And Nick, can you point to that rail system right here? So that's where the saltwater pump is going to sit. It's a new pump that the folks here designed with Oceaneering. And it's not a rotary pump, it's a piston pump. And it's run hydraulically. So all that big motor set that we used to have, that's all gone. And all of the motors on the sub right now are the same, whether they're running the pumps for the hydraulic plant or whether they're running the thrusters. So we have one type of motor. It's all common. We don't have any differences there. It's real nice. You have all that sparing. You can take a thruster motor and make it run a pump. Can you guys still hear me? Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. I'm going to climb on up here and I'll show you. We've got the upper part of the sub here. I'll back up here. Here's the front end. If you look here, if you look close, you guys see this platform underneath the front windows? So this is something new. We've been talking about it for a while, about making use of that space above where the basket will be here. We're going to have a number of reasons for that. It's where a hydraulic valve manifolds are going to go, but it's also going to be a place where we can put lights and cameras. And Dan had talked about light placement and extending lights. And we're talking about putting hydraulic rams so that we can extend lights out from the side of the sub and spread that light up when we get the cameras. And the front end, we haven't done much up here quite yet, but we've got 2 new Panda tilts that are actually going to be down lower with 4K cameras on them. So the front end is going through some pretty nice changes to help improve some of that stuff. I'm going to go up the stairs here. Now, a lot of this work that you've seen, it's happened over the last 2 weeks. This is all the interior bird cage. All these components are going in within the next day or two. We got folks working on the weekends. And if you look here we are. This is the top end of the sub without the sail on it. And most of this looks pretty familiar if you remember what the sub looked like. And there's a subtle change in the back where it was somewhat difficult to get the line onto the T. And we made some improvements on that. So it's going to be easier and safer to lift the sub in and out of the water. But we made a lot of progress. We're probably about 45% assembled. And that's in only a few weeks. We've got a lot more paperwork to do than we do assembly, if you ask me. But why don't I just stand here for a minute? I can hear you guys if you have any questions or if you want to see something else up close. And I can show you the new pump if you'd like to see that as well.
Does anyone have questions for Bruce? I appreciate your enthusiasm.
Well, it's fun. Let me show you the pump that the guys worked on real quick. Hi, Lucy. Can you say hi to the desk community? This is one of our student interns. Get over here. She's been working doing the weight and balance. And then these 2 gentlemen here, that's John and Nick. Can you show me this? Can you pull one of the saltwater pumps out? Saltwater pumps and show them. So this pump started as a conversation with Oceaneering. That's our new variable ballast pump. And there's a big piston inside of there and it's run with hydraulics. We're pretty excited about it. And the nice thing about it is not only did we help design it, but it's easy to spare. We've got 2 of them. So it'd only take a few minutes to switch that out if we ever had a problem. Where compared to the old sub, it would have taken a day and a half. So good changes. It's the same sub you all know, but with a lot of really great changes to it. And with that, I think I'll just stand here and look silly with my mask on. Hi, everyone. We're happy that we're probably not going to have to wear masks too much longer. So anyway, I can sign off or I can stand by for questions.
Stand by for a few questions if anybody has. Yeah. Anybody questions for Bruce? Actually, Bruce, this was fun. Thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's even since the pictures yesterday, we've come a long way. So folks are working really hard. I'm going to sign off and I'll go back up to my office and stay with the rest of the meeting. But
okay.
Glad you guys got the nickel tour.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
Great.
Okay. So, sorry, I'm watching the chat and doing everything else. So thank you, Bruce. That was great. And anybody else have any other sort of discussion points before we close? Okay, well, with that then, I want to thank everybody who's presented today and yesterday. And I feel like we've had a very productive meeting. And we've got a lot of agenda items written down for our closed session. I also thank those of you that have dropped in with last minute suggestions or comments that you want to bring up during the session. This is the perfect timing for that sort of discussion. And that's actually helped really formulate some of our thoughts for what we would like to cover in the closed session. So thank you for being actively involved in the committee workings, because it really does make it more fun for us too. I think, Alice, can you remind me, are ex officio for people, do they normally come to the closed session, or are they allowed into the closed session? I forget.
All of UNOL's meetings are open, so everyone is welcome to stay, but normally in it's just the committee. But folks can stay if they
Right. So even though it's a closed session for the committee, anybody can participate in the discussion. Okay. All right. Well, with that then, thank you all, and we look forward to your participation at ASLO in February at least. And then please stay tuned with the imagery workshops that we're developing. And I'm going to let Alice sign off anything else, and anybody else who wants to make a last minute comment can do so too. And those of you that are staying on for the closed session, please just stay on. Alice, do you want to say anything else?
No, I don't have much else to say either. Did you say we were going to take a quick break, right? And
yeah,
then
we're going to take. Yeah, so
okay.
We'll be back. Let's be back at in 10 minutes.
That sounds great. Anyone who had presentations today that haven't come to me yet, please get them to me so that I can get those online. And we hope to have those online in the next week or so.
Okay, so and definitely desk committee, Amanda, great seeing you too. Thanks for being there. Desk committee, please stay online or be back in 10 minutes. So whatever your time is, 20. 12:20 is my time. So
okay, 20 minutes. Right. Great.
Yeah. In 10 minutes. So you've got 10
minutes. 10 minutes.
You've
okay.
got a 10-minute break.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Donna Louise, can you clarify, did you want the ex officio members there or not?
You don't have to be. I think it may be helpful, but you don't have to, I guess, is what Alice said. So I would like to have you there.
He's asking you if you want him there. Do you want him there? If yes, then tell him to come.
I guess it was more if you don't want me there. It wasn't clear whether it sort of sounded like normal.
No. I would like all ex officio folks to be there if possible, because you are you're the historical legacy. So you help the more the merrier is sort of what I think.
Okay.
But if you can't make it, that's okay too, because I think as Adam mentioned, many of the ex officios don't participate in the closed sessions. But I think it'd be helpful, especially with all the pieces that we are going to talk about now. It'd be helpful. All right, I'm gonna go and grab some lunch, and I'll be back. I like your ratty old hat. It's got a pin keeping it together, right?
Yeah, oh, that's all that's holding it together.
That must be your favorite hat, man.
It is. It's probably due for a new one.
No, I love it. Cool. Okay, let me get my notes together. There's Alice. And Adam, thanks for bringing up the AI stuff. I think that's gonna really appreciate it.
5:30.
You know, it's leadership in the community. That's what you're doing.
Whoa, Andrew Thurber's here twice.
I know, scary. Eh?
Makes up for the Dorsey who's not there. Oh, there she is.
She's there. She said she was only going to be partly here, and I can see it's just her top half. I think her bottom half is somewhere else.
One of my students spilled a bunch of HF in the lab, so I've been trying to deal with that.
Wow. Oh, no.
So it's been.
Did she get any on her?
I hope not.
She spilled it in the fume hood, but she didn't just like close the fume hood as you are trained to do. Instead, she decided she would try to clean it up.
Oh.
So anyway, she's at the ER now. So wonderful.
Wow.
But she said she didn't touch it or get any on her, but she thought she inhaled some of the fumes.
Oh, I'm sure she would have inhaled.
Yeah. So anyway, so environmental health and safety keeps asking me all these questions. And I'm like, I'm in my house.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to put away all my depleted uranium. Don't ask me about the HF.
So I'm like, the 2 lab supervisors and 2 other faculty are in the building. Like, talk to them. So anyway.
So was she wearing, do you have to wear masks in your lab at the moment still?
Yeah.
So she was wearing a mask, which is probably good, right? You hope.
Yeah. So according to her, she's fine. But they sent her to the ER anyway, just to make sure.
Yeah, I think they have to. I mean, that's a legal thing, right?
Well, HF is one of those things where you think you're fine and then suddenly you're not fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So
what happens, Jeff?
I think it binds to the calcium in your bones or something and gets really painful.
It's bad. It like burns. Anyway. So I was listening, but also on the phone from a lot of that meeting. I apologize.
Well, I actually really enjoyed today. I thought it had a little bit more of a free flow to it. So I think we got a lot done. All right. So, oh gosh. I've got a bunch of things on my list, and I'm sure Alice has made a bunch of notes. And then really in this session, I'd also really appreciate if you guys have any comments, things you think that we should be addressing. But I can tell you just I'm going to just go through some of the easy things, Alice, first, and then after that, we will go. We'll address some of the things that came up during this meeting. So the one thing is, are we all in agreement? Are we all in agreement with the full meeting that we're not going to have DeSSC at full meeting, but we're having our annual meeting at ASLO?
Brian is very much in favor of that.
I agree with
Brian at this point.
So you know, I'm curious of how many of the DeSSC committee are already going, because this is one of those things where, right, we only pay for travel to one of the meetings, and that's usually the spring meeting, but I guess we're not paying for that one, so we could pay for the next one. Brian, do you have any thoughts on that? Do you care which meeting we pay for travel to? This might break our budget. It's Hawaii.
No, there's precedent that, each committee member gets one travel reimbursement per year. So if you didn't get paid to go to AGU or whatever, you could have come to it's a lot more flexible than it was when we started a few years back. Let's just put it that way. And no, I don't have a predisposition over, if Hawaii is slightly more expensive on travel. It's more philosophical than financial.
Okay. Okay. Good to know.
Don't tell Bob I said that. So many people aren't supposed to be here, so.
In contrast to my prior statement, looking at our current cruise schedule, it looks like I'll be able to get off the boat and get to Hawaii. So
good.
I think I will be coming.
So let's,
Yeah, me too, now that I'm
So
5
will
hours
we have-
closer.
let's just clarify the finances. So will Dorsey have to pay to go? Is that Dorsey, was that what you're going to ask?
I was not going to speak, but I do have that question. I mean, I probably won't go if I'm not getting money. So it's not something I was going to go to, I guess.
Right. I'm just trying to think. So the meeting starts on the 27th, somebody said? No.
That's
that
what it
right?
says on the website, yes.
I guess,
Which is a Sunday.
I was going to ask that question is, it's not a meeting that I typically go to either, but is there the perception that there's an equally large number of community members that go to that meeting as go to AGU? Because I think the value of the fall desk meeting is getting everyone together.
So, obviously it's usually AGU has a preponderance of folks, and that's why it's mostly been there. But then there's bias against a community that never shows up. The biological oceanographers almost never go to AGU, and it's getting, less and less. So, and